Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. Two people have been killed and as many wounded in an IED blast and gun attack in Afghanistan's capital, Kabul. Police say the vehicle of a member of Afghan parliament was targeted in the attack. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack yet. The blast followed the suspension of Doha peace talks till January 5th. In India, farmers are set to block the Delhi-Jaipur highway as a threat to intensify their protests against the new farm laws. Rejecting Prime Minister Narendra Modi's assurances, thousands of farmers are staging demonstrations near New Delhi. Farmers have been protesting for 18 days now, demanding the Indian government to repeat the 3 farm laws. Post-Brexit trade talks have entered their final day in a last-ditch effort to make a breakthrough. However, both sides have warned they are unlikely to reach an agreement. Prime Minister Boris Johnson is set to speak with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen today. The number of COVID-19 infections in the U.S. has crossed 16 million, while the U.S. deaths are approaching 300,000, with the first vaccine shipments due on Monday. Brazil has reported nearly 44,000 more infections and 686 fatalities in the past 24 hours. Meanwhile, Pakistan has recorded over 3,300 cases and 72 fatalities overnight, while the death toll is nearing 8,800. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 1.6 million lives and infected over 71 million people so far. And in boxing, unified world heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua has knocked out KUBRAT PULEV. Joshua's barrage of uppercuts in the 9th round dropped 39-year-old challenger, wiping him out with a straight right hand. British heavyweights wing bolster hopes for a historic fight with Tyson Fury. Well, these were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back, and now the news in detail. 2 people have been killed and as many wounded in an IED blast and gun attack in Afghanistan's capital, Kabul. Police say the vehicle of a member of Afghan parliament was targeted in the attack. Meanwhile, police say unknown gunman killed a judge in the Kabul city. No group has claimed responsibility for the attacks yet. Earlier on Saturday, Kabul also witnessed multiple rocket attacks in various parts of the city. In Doha, the negotiating teams of Kabul and the Taliban say the next round of peace talks has been delayed till January 5th. They say the decision was taken to make time for more consultations on the agenda.
Taliban spokesperson Mohammad Naeem said both sides exchanged an initial list of agenda items. He said the 2 sides will start discussing agenda items for the inter-Afghan talks from December 14. Afghan negotiator Nadir Nadiri also said that they have agreed to conduct more consultations, but he did not mention whether the talks will be convened in Doha or somewhere else. This comes after National Security Advisor Hamdullah Mohib said Kabul is ready to hold talks with the Taliban in any part of the country they suggest. Earlier this month, negotiators agreed on procedural rules for the talks.
In India, farmers are set to block the Delhi-Jaipur highway as a threat to intensify their protests against the new farm laws. Rejecting Prime Minister Narendra Modi's assurances, thousands of farmers are staging demonstrations near New Delhi. A spokesman for the Farmers Union said they will not settle for anything less than complete repeal of the laws. Police have detained several protesters as they have announced a hunger strike on December 14th. The Farmers Union also condemned accusations that the protests are being hijacked by the Maoist elements. The government and the farmer leaders have held several rounds of talks but failed to end the crisis. Farmers have been protesting for 18 days now, demanding the Indian government to repeal the 3 farm laws. In Pakistan, 72 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours. This has pushed the nationwide death toll to 8,796. Health officials reported 3,369 new infections overnight. Meanwhile, there are more than 46,000 active cases in the country. The Health Ministry says out of over 438,000 countrywide cases, more than 383,000 people have recovered. Meanwhile, Pakistan has increased vaccine procurement funds to $250 million and signed agreements with various multinational companies. The vaccine will be available for the masses by the end of 2021. The number of COVID-19 infections in the U.S. has crossed 16 million, while the U.S. deaths are approaching 300,000, with the first vaccine shipments due on Monday. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 1.6 million lives and infected over 71 million people so far. More about COVID-19 and its vaccine in this report.
More than a year after the first case of COVID-19 was recorded, nations are hoping vaccines might prove to be the panacea. Brazil has unveiled a national vaccination plan with an initial goal of immunizing 1/4 of the population in the first half of 2021. The Brazilian Health Ministry has reported nearly 44,000 more infections and 686 fatalities in the past 24 hours. In the US, where the virus is raging, Pfizer has launched the largest and most complex vaccine distribution project.
We expect 145 sites across all the states to receive vaccine on Monday, another 425 sites on Tuesday, and the final 66 sites on Wednesday, which will complete the initial delivery of the Pfizer orders for vaccine.
Meanwhile, in Europe, Italy is downgrading coronavirus risk levels in 5 regions. French theatres, cinemas and other venues say they will go to court to force the government to allow them to reopen. And in Spain, police controlled thousands of residents who crowded central Madrid ahead of Christmas.
Depende de la calle.
It depends on the street. It is true that there are streets that are so crowded that you think here it seems that the coronavirus has not existed. But then there are areas where you do walk quietly.
In Asia, India has reported nearly 400 COVID-19 deaths and over 30,000 infections overnight, while its caseload has crossed 9.85 million. South Korea has registered a record daily increase in novel coronavirus cases for a second straight day with 1,030 new infections. China reported 24 new cases across the mainland, but the Australian state of New South Wales has recorded a 9th straight day without a local infection.
In the U.S., President Donald Trump's supporters have staged protests across the country, declaring his loss in the election. A rally in Washington turned violent as pro-Trump Proud Boys brawled with left-wing counter-protesters in downtown.
The two groups shouted insults at each other across the street near McPherson Square, with some setting off fireworks. Police in riot gear moved in quickly to break up the sporadic clashes. President Trump acknowledged his supporters in the Capitol by having his helicopter fly in a ring above the protest site. Protests were also planned in Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Nevada, and Arizona. Meanwhile, Wisconsin Supreme Court termed Trump's campaign's lawsuit seeking to annul 221,000 votes smacks of racism. Trump campaign has suffered a string of defeats in its legal bid to overturn election results.
Post-Brexit trade talks have entered their final day in a last-ditch effort to make a breakthrough. However, both sides have warned they're unlikely to reach an agreement. Prime Minister Boris Johnson is set to speak with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen today. In an interview, Britain's Foreign Minister Dominic Raab said there was much further to go. He said the UK wants to be treated like any other independent, self-respecting democracy. Local media says British ministers have warned supermarkets to stockpile food amid possibilities of a no-deal Brexit. Britain quit the European Union in January but remains an informal member until 31st of December for the transition period. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says the EU must discard pressure it is facing from Greece and Cyprus. In a video address, he said it was wrong for Ankara's relations with the bloc to fall victim to the tricks of one or two states. This comes after Brussels agreed to impose limited sanctions on Turkish individuals over an energy exploration dispute with Greece and Cyprus. Earlier, Erdogan said sanctions imposed by the bloc will damage both sides. He called on European politicians to solve problems through dialogue and cooperation. Over in the Middle East, Israel says Bhutan has become the latest country to establish diplomatic relations with it. In a statement, the Foreign Ministry said the agreement followed years of secret communication. A signing ceremony was held between the Israeli and Bhutanese ambassadors to India. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu wrote on Twitter that the deal was an additional fruit of the peace agreements. Bhutan has full diplomatic ties with only 53 countries, a list that doesn't include the US, China, and Russia. The move comes 2 days after Israel and Morocco agreed to normalize ties in a deal brokered by the US. Thousands of Israelis took to the streets of Jerusalem in protest against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. They slammed his indictment on charges of corruption and mishandling of the COVID-19 pandemic. The crowds rallied outside Netanyahu's official residence. They blew whistles, waved signs and flags calling for his resignation.
I'm here in order to make a change. We have a prime minister who's divisive, who is splitting the country, who is ruining our economy, and who is undermining the structure of democracy.
Israel has reported over 335,000 infections and almost 3,000 deaths due to the pandemic so far. And now moving on to the gunmen have kidnapped hundreds of school children in Nigeria's northwestern Katsina state. Officials say some 400 students are missing. Police said the gang armed with AK-47 stormed the government-signed secondary school. The governor of state ordered immediate closure of all boarding secondary schools in the state. Nigeria's President Buhari condemned the attack. He said the security agencies have swung into action and were on the trail of the bandits. Last month, scores of farmers were killed by the ISIS in Borno State massacre. In Venezuela, the opposition has concluded a popular consultation to renounce President Nicolas Maduro's government. The consultation proposed by Juan Guaido kicked off virtually but ended with in-person participation. With 87% of responses viewed, the opposition reported a total participation of just under 6.5 million people. More than 3 million people voted in person, with some 2.4 million online. The opposition said 845,000 Venezuelans abroad took part in the process. Although aimed at exhibiting a broad rejection of Maduro, the consultation does not offer a clear path towards a change of government. Meanwhile, government says 5.2 million Venezuelans voted in the opposition boycotted parliamentary elections. Thousands of people are bracing for floods on Australia's subtropical east coast. Beaches are closed, with authorities urging people to stand back their homes and avoid driving. New South Wales and Queensland states are in the midst of the first La Nina rainstorm of the season. The area received rainfall as high as 475 millimeters in the previous hours. The Bureau of Meteorology has issued a severe weather warning for the area. Just a week earlier, nearby Fraser Island was evacuated due to bushfires, a sign of the erratic weather. La Nina weather pattern typically features strong rain combined with climate change. And now it's time to take a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back, and now moving on to China. A memorial ceremony was held to more than 300,000 victims of the Nanjing massacre committed by Japan in 1937. It was the seventh service since the date was designated as a National Memorial Day for Nanjing massacre victims. With thousands in attendance, the ceremony was held at the square in front of Memorial Hall in Nanjing. China's national flag flew at half-mast as sirens blared in the capital city of Jiangsu province. Sirens howled over the city. On the streets, drivers parked their cars and honked. Pedestrians paused and observed a moment of silence. A member of the Chinese Communist Party, Chen Shi, delivered the memorial speech. Floral wreaths were presented to the altar by members of the Guard of Honor. A Chinese space capsule bringing back the first moon rocks in more than 4 decades has begun its return trip Earth. It spent about 6 days in lunar orbit. The China National Space Administration said the Chang'e 5 lunar probe left the orbit by activating 4 engines for about 22 minutes. The mission landed on the moon earlier this month and collected about 2 kilograms of samples. The return capsule is expected to land in northern China in the Inner Mongolia region in mid-December. The samples would be the first brought back since the Soviet Union's Luna 24 probe in 1976. The third Hainan Island International Film Festival has concluded in Sanya city of South China's Hainan province. The festival received over 4,000 entries from 114 countries and regions. More in the following report.
189 films from 60 countries and regions have been selected for cinemas across Hainan. 2020 China Fights, a 4K resolution documentary film made by China Media Group about the country's battle against COVID-19 epidemic, made its debut during the film festival. Producer of the documentary said the film reviewed the touching scenes during the epidemic through the perspectives of 3 ordinary people. Wang Xinjian said it shows a medic supporting Hubei, a volunteer, and a girl of the post-90s generation in Wuhan. He said through the scenes, people can feel the warmth of the world and the strength of China. A series of activities including a film panorama, venture capital conferences, forums and summits were held during the film festival. After the closing ceremony of the film festival, the Island Carnival will continue to tour and many excellent films will be shown on Hainan Island.
The much-loved British Christmas tradition of pantomime has been saved thanks to a production staged in car parks. Throughout the festive season, the Birmingham Stage Company will perform Horrible Christmas across the UK. More about the tradition in this report.
A drive-in performance of a Christmas pantomime is touring outdoor venues across the UK. The car park PANTO tells the story of a young boy trying to save Christmas. Audience participation is limited to honking horns and flashing headlamps. Actor and company manager Neil Foster described it as a totally unique way of doing theatre.
I like to make kids cry.
It's very peculiar. You're dependent much more on your fellow actors in a way, because you can't connect so much with the audience as you normally would in a theatre. You can't feel the atmosphere in the same way. You play off each other. But you know that everyone's sitting there, and you can see the front row. You can see few people through the windshield. So when we do the audience interaction, you can see it happening.
For audience members in Chelmsford in eastern England, the production was different to the usual pantomime, but a triumph nonetheless. In line with coronavirus safe guidelines, the cast and crew have been in bubbles since rehearsals began and will spend Christmas together as performances run until January 3rd. Foster said the production was a saving grace for the actors, many of whom have not had an acting job since March. Audience appreciated the effort of the company, saying it's a relief amid COVID restrictions.
It's really nice because there's hardly anything on, especially for the kids. They're missing out so many things they would normally do this time of year. So it's really nice that there's something they can come along to.
Meanwhile, houses festooned with Christmas lights are some of the only festive attractions which remain possible in Germany and Austria this year. In Austria, the Goldnuber family has bedecked their house and garden with some 600,000 LEDs over 5,000 square meters. Meanwhile, in Germany, pensioner Bernhard Dobitz spent around 7 weeks installing his Christmas light installation. A former electrician, he has been decorating his house for 40 years.
African-American country singer Charley has died of complications from COVID-19. He was 86. Pride's final performance was on November 11 at the Country Music Association Award Show in Nashville. Between 1967 and 1987, he delivered 52 top 10 country hits. He joined the Country Music Hall of Fame in 2000. Music star Dolly Parton wrote on Twitter she was heartbroken. One of her dearest friends has passed away. In boxing, unified world heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua has knocked out KUBRAT PULEV. Joshua's barrage of uppercuts in the 9th round dropped 39-year-old challenger, wiping him out with a straight right hand. Joshua's exhibition of power and patience was witnessed by 1,000 fans at Wembley Arena. Having suffered a defeat against Andy Ruiz Jr. in December, the English boxer was punch perfect against PULEV. The Bulgarian briefly tried to smile and roar in the face of adversity, but to no avail. British heavyweights win bolster hopes for a historic fight with Tyson Fury. In cricket, Pakistan dealt a big blow as skipper Babar Azam has been ruled out of 3-match 2020 series against New Zealand. Azam's drop from playing 11 follows a fracture in his right thumb he sustained during practice session. Pakistan Cricket Board says Azam will not be able to practice for at least 12 days. PCB added the batting mainstay was in race against time to be fit for the first of 2 Test match series. In a statement, Pakistan head coach Misbah-ul-Haq hoped for Azam's complete fitness ahead of long cricket session. Green shirts suffered his injury a day after top-order batsman Imam-ul-Haq fractured his left thumb. Pakistan's 2020 vice-captain Shadab Khan was also carrying a groin niggle. In football, champions Bayern Munich drew Union Berlin 1-1 to retain their top spot in the Bundesliga table. Grisha Primal glancing header from a corner stunned the visitors, giving Union their lead in 6th minute. Bundesliga top scorer Lewandowski rescued Bayern in the 67th minute with his 13th goal of the campaign. In another fixture, VfB Stuttgart thrashed hosts Borussia Dortmund 5-1 to maintain their winning streak. Salas Wamagituka, Philip Forster, Tanguy Koulibaly and Nicolas Gonzalez scored 1 each for Stuttgart. The win moved Stuttgart up to 6th place in Bundesliga with 17 points, while Dortmund slipped to 5th place with 19 points. In the English Premier League, Dwight Gale scored the winner for Newcastle as they beat West Brom 2-1 at St James Park. Gale came off the bench to find the net with a header 8 minutes from stoppage time. Newcastle took the lead after just 20 seconds, which was equalized by West Brom after the break. In another fixture, Aston Villa narrowly beat Wolverhampton Wanderers by 1-0. Villa snatched victory in the final moments of the game thanks to Anwar El Ghazi's goal from a penalty. And in Spanish La Liga, Real Madrid have defeated leaders Atletico Madrid 2-0. The victory has moved Real Madrid to 3rd place in the league with 23 points. Carlos Casemiro's 15-minute header gave the hosts a deserved lead at the Alfredo Di Stefano Stadium. Spanish Dani Carvajal's second-half strike from outside the box rebounded off the post and off the back of the Atletico's goalkeeper. The defeat comes as Atletico's first in 26 league games. The two sides have safely progressed to the Champions League last 16. In the 2020 opening of the Snowboard World Cup, Czech Republic's Esther Ledacka and Italian Roland Fischnaller have claimed wins at Italy's famed Cortina.
With no fans in attendance due to COVID-19 restrictions, Olympic PGS champ Ledecka outdueled German Selena Jorg in the women's big final by 0.86 of a second to earn the victory. German Ramona Theresia Hofmeister took the final step of the women's podium with the defeat of Cheyenne Locke in the 3rd place race. On the men's side, it was home favourite Fischneller taking his 4th parallel giant slalom win in a row with his 0.45 of a second victory over countryman Aaron March. Austrian Benjamin Karl narrowly defeated Italian Mirko Felicetti in the 3rd place race to fill out the men's podium. The FIA Snowboard World Cup now heads to Carezza in Italy for next weekend's PGS event.
In golf, Japan's Hanako Shibunu put in her shakiest round yet at the U.S. Women's Open, but managed to maintain a 1-stroke lead over American Amy Olsen heading into the final round. The 2019 British Open champion book-ended her trip with 2 bogeys en route to a 3rd round 3 over 74. Shibunu admitted that she was very nervous as the bright lights of the championship got to her. The tournament is being held without spectators due to the COVID-19 pandemic. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.